Buenos dias und herzlich willkommen bei Gate 7, deinem Podcast über Fernweh und Fotografie. In dieser Show geht es um Menschen, für die Reisen mehr ist als Spaß und Erholung. Freue dich auf praktische Tipps und Tricks, wie du tief in fremde Kulturen eintauchst und lerne, deine Abenteuer in bewegenden Bildern festzuhalten, egal mit welcher Kamera. Bist du bereit? Dann los, lass uns abheben mit deinem Gastgeber, Kai Beermann.
Seine Bilder sind in renommierten Magazinen wie Life, National Geographic, Geo oder Stern abgedruckt worden. Dennoch sieht sich Éric Valli nicht als Fotograf. I'm not a photographer, sagt er. Jedenfalls nicht in erster Linie. Er sieht sich vielmehr als Abenteurer, der eine Kamera dabei hat. Éric Valli sagt, I don't see myself so much as a photographer, but as a kind of a Boy Scout. A little naive, curious and thirsty for adventure, for discovery and the unknown. Das Unbekannte und die Neugier aufs Entdecken, das ist es, was Éric Valli, seitdem er mit 18 seine Tischlerlehre beendet hatte, immer wieder hinaustreibt in die Welt. An entlegene Orte, um dort Dinge zu fotografieren, die man so vorher noch nicht gesehen hat. Er war mit einer Jagdkarawane im Himalaya unterwegs und er hat die Honigsammler, die Honey Hunters in Nepal begleitet. Über all das sprechen wir in diesem Interview, das ich am Rande des Fotofestivals in Baden aufgenommen habe, und ich muss sagen, es ist eines der Interviews geworden, das bei mir auch nach dem Drücken auf die Stopp-Taste am meisten nachgehallt hat und immer noch nachhallt. Sein Gespräch nicht nur über Fotografie, sondern über das Leben an sich und wie es gelingt, ein Leben voller Abenteuer und Erlebnisse zu führen. Wir sprechen über Bücher, wir sprechen über Einflüsse und am Ende kommt auch noch Éric Vallis Sohn Aurel hinzu. Das gibt dem Gespräch noch eine besonders spannende Note, denn Aurel berichtet, wie es ist, als Sohn eines so abenteuerlustigen Vaters aufzuwachsen. Und vor allen Dingen auch die Frage, wie er selbst seine Zukunft sieht. Mich hat dieses Gespräch unheimlich bewegt und ich hoffe, dass es dir ebenso geht. Alle weiterführenden Links und Informationen findest du wie immer in den Shownotes unter www.gate7.de, 7 ausgeschrieben, nicht als Zahl und dann /Éric-Valli. Ja, es lohnt sich wirklich, sich das Portfolio von Éric Valli nochmal anzuschauen. Keine weiteren Worte sind an dieser Stelle nötig der Einleitung, also lass uns direkt einsteigen in das Interview mit Éric Valli und seinem Sohn Aurel. Viel Spaß! Well, good morning, Éric Valli. Thank you very much for taking the time talking to me. It's a huge pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about your work, your life as a photographer. Maybe let's start off. Today here at breakfast, you were the subject of a photograph. Normally you are behind the camera and this time you were in front of a camera. What was this about?
A very interesting, surprising kind of project where there is this photographer who takes pictures of us with a mask on. So it was a bit kind of surprising. And then I said no. 2 days ago, I bumped into him and I was having a discussion with Pascal Maître and things like that, and didn't feel like doing this kind of silly thing, you know, but today he came back and he just asked me to do it again. So I said, okay. I said yes. So it was being the subject of a photography. I mean, you know, we were, as we talked here, you know, you were asking me about photography and things like that, me being a photographer. I'm not so much a photographer. First, I don't believe that I'm one of the great photographers. You know, like, let's say Sebastião Salgado or Duano or, you know, some of these great photographers. I take decent photography, but what makes the power of my work is the subject I tackle. You know, all the subjects I do are subjects which have never been heard of before, never been seen before, and they are very kind of adventurous and exotic in some ways, you know. That's what makes the power of photography, you know, the kind of, and you were telling me, oh, Éric Valli, you are a photographer. I'm not a photographer. I mean, I take pictures and I made my living out of taking pictures, but I'm much more interested by the adventure of it all rather than just the photography. It's boring, you know, it's, but but I'm very interested in. My son was asking me not long ago, what is the best time you spent in your life? And there is this great sentence saying, life, these few islands of bliss on the middle of this ocean of boredom. Okay, so that's one sentence I got 2 days ago. I thought described life very well. But the best time I have spent in my life are the time I spent taming and sharing the life of the subject I have decided to cover. When I climb on the middle of the bees in the cliff of the bees, when I cross the Himalaya with this gigantic yak caravan, that's when my heart is beating. And then, I made many books in my life. I don't know how many books, maybe 20, maybe more, I don't know, and countless articles and things like that, or films and things like that. So it's nice when you open your book and you smell the fresh ink and you get a kind of recognition, or you do an exhibition and so on. Yes, but my life, I lead it like this because of the great adventure I share with Manilal, or with Tinley, the yak caravaner, or with Badu, or the Raji, or that's why I live this life, not to take pictures. I take pictures, but it's on the side in many ways.
Mm-hmm. How did all this started? When you were young, was there already this kind of adventure, a sense for adventure in you? Were you a boy who liked to go out, discover things, play in nature? Or how did this involve this, desire to go out, to go to remote places, to feel life, to have experiences?
It all started with books, actually. It all started with the books that my father offered me when I was a kid, Rilke, Herman Hesse, Richard Burton, Jack London, Joseph Conrad, all the great writers and adventurers of the last century. So that's what triggered my curiosity. And I remember one day I was 16 and I said, Paps, I'm tired of going to colony de vacances, maybe I should start travel. And he said, who gave you these ideas? And I said, you gave me these ideas, And then I started to travel. I was 18 when I crossed Afghanistan horseback. So it was in 1970, something like that. So Afghanistan was very, very different from what it is today. A fantastic piece of land, great people and things like that. And that's when I got hooked. When suddenly, you are on your horse, you have your gun in your pocket, because I had to have a gun. And you are 18 and you are on the middle of the Hindu Kush, and suddenly your life, boom, switches. You cannot go back into your little shoebox, in Dijon and continue being a cabinet maker. It's just, you see the scope of life. You see all these different lives, all these different ways of living your life. And then my father, being a painter, he is a painter, and he offered me a camera, started to take pictures. And then I went to jail. I had a lot of trouble in Afghanistan. I went to India and discovered Nepal, and it was a big love story suddenly. I mean, Afghanistan was, but Nepal was, bam. That's what I was confusedly looking for. And a woman I fell in love with, an amazing piece of land, very unknown. I mean, because there were these treks, Everest Trek and Annapurna treks, where tourists used to go. But besides that, in 1972, there were huge amount of space which were totally unknown. So the unknown. But the unknown is what I like, I like not knowing where I go to sleep tonight, not knowing who I'm going to bump into, what I'm going to learn. I love this kind of unknown. I like the unknown, basically, yeah. And then focusing on one subject. When I heard about the honey hunters, I looked for them many, many years. I looked for them a long, long time. Finally discovered Manilal, who was the essence of this incredible craft, and became his student, basically, you know. I became his student, and I was the only one at the time, even of all his life, who ever came down with him in the cliff. Even among his 12 or 13 assistants, people wouldn't go down the cliff with him, yeah. So it was a great adventure, which I tried to make a testimony of, you know. I at the same time, yeah, in my approach there is something, and I had trouble with Stern by also, because I publish stories, but I don't want also to be at the same time the man who reveals the story and the man who destroys it by bringing thousands of tourists up there. So very often I had published stories without saying where it was. And that was the case with the honey hunters. I never said where the honey hunters were. And that was the case with Stern also, where I published my first story actually in about Nepal, about Yak caravan in the 82 or something like that, long time ago. And where they asked me, we are an educational magazine, you know, we won't publish until you tell us where it is. And I said, I'm sorry, but from the beginning I told you that I didn't want to reveal where it was, because I have a duty of protecting this area, you know, from tourism, from, you know, all these things. And then he said, okay, we are not going to publish. And I said, okay. His name is Mr. Binken. He was the picture editor of Stern at the time. And I said, no. And we hung up the phone. Mm-hmm. And he called half an hour later and he said, okay, we publish. That was it. But with the Geographic, with the honey hunters, that was the same story. So, I mean, yeah, I don't see myself so much as a photographer, but as a kind of Boy Scout, you know, a little naive and a little curious, thirsty for adventure, for discovery, for the unknown, yeah. Uh-huh.
It's an amazing story from the books of Jack London, from the tales he told in fiction to the real world, becoming an adventurer yourself, discovering these amazing places like the honey hunters. You mentioned this story. You were in Nepal, and how did this start? Where was the first time that you heard of this, what they were doing there with the honey?
Okay, I got stuck in a storm. In the forest of Nepal, on the foot of the Himalaya. I got stuck under a huge storm, and a shepherd, you know, goat and sheep and things like that was there, and he said, "Come in my little hut, and I offer you shelter." So I was very happy. So, you know, we are 3,000 meters of height, beautiful meadows, beautiful trees and forests and things like that. And I sleep in his little house. It's a little hut made out of woven bamboo and things like that. I wake up in the morning and he had put his blanket onto me. I fell asleep. I was tired, I guess. So I have some tea, I have some sugar, which is kind of very precious or very rare in this kind of part at the time. So I share my tea and sugar with him, and he's very happy and so on. And I look up under the beam of his little hut, and I see a big spiral, kind of a strange rope, very big and things like that. And I say, well, what is that, you know? And he said it's a ladder, and it belonged to my father. He's a honey hunter. Honey hunter, Masikari. a ladder to do what? I didn't understand anything. So we just picked up this big thing and we unfolded it in the middle of the meadow, and it was a ladder made out of woven bamboo fiber and wooden steps, which was 50 meters long. And I said, okay, I don't understand anything. Please tell me. So he took me under the cliff, and he showed me, very high up in the cliff, under the overhang, huge overhang, this black kind of circle, big one, very far up the cliff. And he said, these are bee nest, wild bee nest, And my father used to go and harvest the honey. And I said, where is your father? And he said, well, my father died 7 years ago. And from then on, I was completely obsessed by the story. And I discovered some young honey hunters, but they didn't know the craft. They were working like, I wanted a master honey hunter. And I looked for him a long, long time, actually more than a year. And one day I bumped into him. And he said, no, what are you going to do with your slippery nylon rope on the middle of the cliff? Me, I have a ladder, you white boy, go fuck yourself. Something like that, And then I was completely, because I had met the whole great master coming out of the forest, and he said, you want honey? You buy it from me, you give me rupees, why do you want to get stung by the bees and things like that? And I asked about him, and he was a legend in the valley. And I asked, so grumpy old man, basically. And then I said, but because he was old already, he was 60-something, 60s, I don't know. A very small, tiny guy, very slim, very grumpy. I couldn't quite understand his Nepalese because his Nepali was old, colloquial kind of stuff, and he was very rough. He ate all my biscuits and my tea and just left back into his village. But I learned that nobody would take over his role as a honey hunter, and he was getting old. And not even his son would take his trade, So I went with Lakpa. We interviewed many villagers about him, and he was grumpy, all right, but he didn't have any student, okay? Nobody would ever take his, because it's scary stuff, okay? And then I crossed the valley and went to see his village, and I had a book already. I'd done a book about, some of the things in Nepal, and I showed him the book and brought some more biscuits, I guess, or something like that. He is very poor. Manilal is very poor. He doesn't have any land. That's why he's a honey hunter, because with the honey, he can get the corn that he needs. He can get whatever, he trade the honey for what he doesn't have, because he has no land. And what happened is that we were sitting in his house and things like that. I showed him the book, and I said, nobody is going to take your trade, and it's an incredible job that you are doing somehow, because there were no sugar in this area at all, the only sugar was honey, We were maybe at the time, maybe 4 or 5 days walk from the road, There were no road in the Himalaya at the time. And he he said something to his wife, a tiny woman, and she just went, and I hear, she bring back a chicken, and he takes the chicken, he kills the chicken, with a twist, and he says, okay, chicken, woman, cook the chicken, and I had some rice, so I offered him some rice also. And then we eat together, and next week you come with me. And that's how I came with him. And I remember the first cliff. I tell you, guy, you see this little guy with no protection, nothing, going down his heavy bamboo ladder, and you have little rope yourself. The cliff is 150 meters high and my rope is maybe 30 meters long, So no escape from down there, And you see the little guy disappearing in the cliff and you are there and you just think, where am I going? But it was worth it, I went down and the interesting thing is that as a photographer, I wanted to be in the art of the action, to be very close to this man, to see his incredible fight and behavior in the middle of this huge overhang at, 130 meters above the ground, above the forest. But I wanted to see the context also. So all these pictures, the main pictures, most of the pictures are taken with a 19 millimeter. So I was as close to Manilal as I am to you, I was 1 meter away from him. So I was in the art of the action. And for sure, you get sting, you get stung, you get all these things. But I mean, it's quite incredible because in between times, there is one thing I didn't tell you. I was looking for the honey hunters, and it took months and months. And I think it took me over a year to find Manilal. And one day, my first wife, Diane, Australian girl, and myself, we found ourselves in London. And we got out of the subway and there were a newsstand. And in the newsstand, life is so strange. In the newsstand, there is a magazine called Be World. And I go to see this magazine and the cover is a cave painting which is 80,000 years old, which depicts exactly what the son of the first honey hunter told me. The ladder, the long pole, the bag beside the man on the ladder and things like that. And it's a cave painting which dates from 80,000 years and which is in Almeria in southern Spain. And there is another one in South Africa also. And I remember turning to Diane and I said, it's impossible that we missed our honey hunter by 7 years. This trade exists since 80,000 years. It's not possible that we missed the real alive honey hunter by 7 years. So we went back to the Himalaya and one day I bumped into him. So that's my story is, I am telling you the other side of the lens here, and few people know what make me discover my stories, but it takes a long, long time to bump into such incredible stories as this one, or the incredible story. Another incredible story I did was with this gigantic yak caravan, the last great caravan of the Himalaya, of which I made the film Himalaya, yeah. You know the film or not? Yeah, you know the film, yeah. So, it takes a long time. It's, you have to cover a lot of land. You have to have a lot of determination. And each of these stories is basically a big love story. Manilal and I, we were just incredible friends, or Tinley and I, the chief of this village and of this yak caravan in Dolpo and so on. We were just incredible friends. And so it's not only a story of photography, you know what I mean? It's very much a human story, before all.
How do you look at these pictures today of the honey hunters, for example? At the first night of the festival here, you were on stage and you said that it makes you sad, or it's hard for you to look at these pictures because you know that this is an old tradition which is fading or which won't continue. What are your thoughts about this project and looking back to it from this point now?
Okay, you refer to the other night. Okay, so we were talking about Madagascar. Forest is being cut down. Animals are being wiped out. The day before yesterday, this big film produced by Leonardo DiCaprio on ivory. Elephants are being wiped out. Amazon, the Amazon is being totally wiped out. So yeah, it's very difficult to be optimistic. I'm sorry to say, but we became the biggest predator on this earth, and in the old days, my life has been to live with people who still lived in harmony with nature. And how many are there anymore? How many are there left? Very, very few. I mean, basically, we are raiding the planet. Every animal on Earth is living in a concentration camp, being exploited like you cannot imagine. I think about, all the animal we eat and how we raise them. It's awful. It's awful. The elephant, which I never thought in my naivety would be because I remember seeing these hordes of, hundreds and hundreds of elephants, Now they are becoming rarer and rarer. I don't know how many millions of elephants were killed in the last 10 years. This for ivory. I mean, I'm ashamed of being a human being many times. Many times. I'm really ashamed. And for sure it makes me, I never studied, okay? I was bad at school and things like that. So by trade, I became a cabinet maker, and then I started to travel. Then I became a photographer, writer, filmmaker, and this and that. But just by going on my trail, I'm not somebody very educated, but I didn't realize in my naive young years that the world was going to change so quickly, so radically, so now wild places on Earth, I mean, where are they? It's so I saw the world change so quickly, and it's slightly depressing, Yeah, sure. I don't know what you think about it yourself, but, yeah.
No, exactly the same. Like if you look at what's happening and at what speed things are changing, and it's for a long time climate change was something abstract that at least living here in the Western world we didn't feel the impact that much, but now even here with more floods more often, like this summer, it's getting close, and I think there's no way that you can't feel that things are changing. And also at this festival there's so many works about biodiversity, climate change, the impact, and it's all around. I mean, wherever you look, it's you can't deny. Going back to the honey hunters, what in the end, what happened to this tradition? This was one last master, a great master that you.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about people living in harmony with nature, we were in this big cliff called Somsaibir. And Somsaibir means the cliff of 300 bee nest, whatever. And then we would go down this cliff, and we harvest the right, the left, above, a little bit down, and things like that. And sometimes he wouldn't even harvest some of the beehive, but the beehive are gigantic. Huh? You cannot even put them into inside my arm like this. It's bigger than that. It's huge. And I would say to Manila, why don't you have this one? He said, no, these one, these two, these three, they are for the gods. And we go to the left, yeah. And then we would move the ladder to the left or to the right. And so, there were this respect. This film by Kurosawa called Der Zuzala? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that very, very much. When I met Manilal, I called him, I nicknamed him Der Zuzala, because he had this same... it's an amazing movie by Kurosawa. He had the same respect towards nature, towards the tiger, towards the wild life and the forest and things like that. So, yeah, Manila, I called him Der Zuzala. He didn't understand who Der Zuzala was, but I called him Der Zuzala because he was so much like that, yeah. I'm thinking of making a feature film about this adventure, by the way, because, that was one of my first great adventure. It was not my first adventure, but it was my first great mad adventure, totally wild. Then we would have the bees, and the bees, they are migratory bees, so they would move in, I don't remember when, but a month of whatever, they would move somewhere, there were no bees anymore and things like that. And then he would take his big muzzle loader, the big gun that you load from the tip of the barrel, and we would go hunt and hunt wild goat and bears and things like that. It was just wow, and I was, how old was I? I was 28, 29 or something like that, 30 maybe. So for me it was just wow. Then we would sleep in the cave and then we had no water, and he said, "No water, what are you talking about, you little connard?" And then we would go down into the cave and he would move some little leaf and things like that. And there were a spring. So, yeah. And then he would light fire with a piece of metal and a flintstone and just wow, it was just, I didn't realize that I could still live such incredible adventure at the time, being with Tinley, the old man in Himalaya was just like being with Geronimo, I always, one of my big regret was to have been born too late, because I would have loved to live with Geronimo or, all these incredible people in before the white man came there and destroyed everything. But that's what I did when I was traveling with the Dole Popa and their caravans and things like that. It was completely being with Geronimo and being with these completely wild, tender, human, so knowledgeable people, and they would be able to survive with nothing. Where they would strive and things like that. I would die myself as a white man. 3 days lost in the bloody mountain at, 5,000 meters of height. I would, with a broken leg, I would die be eaten by a wolf in 3 days. Forget it, Themselves, they would be able to survive with their woolen clothes, their yak leather boots and their flintstone and, So I was very much of a kind of, not so much a photographer, as I said, I was very much a young kid on the middle of this incredible culture, which were vanishing under my eyes. I didn't realize it would change so quickly. Yeah. I look back and I just think, how come you were so naive, so blind? You didn't realize it was so fragile. Because these cultures have been existed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and then suddenly in 1 generation, 2 generations, whoop, wiped out. Yeah. Didn't realize that. The fragility of it all, yeah.
You mentioned that you would have liked to be born a little bit earlier. Young people now would probably say the same, looking at your life. To live that kind of adventure seems, not really possible anymore. As you said, everything is so fragile these days, these remote places. There's little unknown in this world anymore, and not so much to be explored. Your son is sitting next to us here. I don't know, how old is he?
He's 18, yeah, and it's kind of funny because yesterday we passed by the exhibition and he said something to me. He said, wow, all the incredible things you have seen. Yes, but I think human adventure is quite an incredible adventure, you think, when you look at it, and there are other adventure, I believe. There are other adventure to live, to experience, but they are not the same. They are not the same, we turned a big page and now there is a future to be built. I think a lot of mistakes are being made, we are very blind and very insensitive to so many things, but I think that in other fields, in other places, in other ways, there is still adventure. The future is a big question mark. So what's going to happen? Are we going to be wiped out by our own greed? I have the feeling that intelligence is very overrated. We are very intelligent, but isn't it our own intelligence who made us? Isn't it our own intelligence which forge the weapon of our own destruction in many ways? Technology has been wiping out nature, basically, So intelligence, I see it in a very different way now. Intelligence is maybe not as good as what we think it is, Do I express myself correctly?
Yes, you do. And in fact, yesterday there was a documentary they showed, and they gave a glimpse into what's technologically possible and what they are doing, what they are researching on in artificial intelligence. And
we missed this one.
And it talked exactly about that. Like they are trying to hand over human intelligence to machines, and we, not even ourselves, we have understood what it means to be human, what it means to be humanly intelligent, and now we're handing over this to machines. It's a very frightening thought when you go into it. You don't know what's coming. The technology is there, but are we creating something that, we are not able to comprehend what consequences it might bring?
Yeah, consequences. We don't quite understand what are the consequences of our behavior many times. Many times we just see at such a short time, And for instance, what's happening to us with this pandemic, It's, we don't look, we don't see, we don't comprehend the consequences of our action most of the time. I was with a businessman talking about that not long ago, and he said, "Oh, can you see further than 3 months anyway? Because every big company has, I don't know how you call this thing, but every 3 months they have to publish their result. They have to give money to their investors. So you don't want to comprehend further than 3 months. You have to give back to your investors to give back part of the profit and things like that. So you don't see more than 3 months ahead of ourselves. And it's a very short time. It's a very short time, and it's slightly freaky. It's very freaky.
Yes. Maybe we can bring your son into the conversation. Can you come over?
Yeah, sure.
What's your name?
My name is Urel. It's very nice to be here.
Thank you for taking time. It's great to have father and son next to each other, 2 generations. And your father was just saying you went through the exhibition and looked at the pictures and also looking at the work that your father did over his life. What are your thoughts?
Well, he's often told me, like you said, he wished he was born far longer ago. But when you see how things are getting so boring in this world, it's hard. You fiend for adventure, but you keep you keep finding dead ends where people just changed as well. They're less open, they're less down for just living something more heartly, you know? And that's what's sometimes frustrates me, because he got to do that, and I'll figure out a way how to do that as well. But it's such a blessing just to be able to try and experience and try to go out and live, that it'd be a shame not to even try. So let's just have fun, right?
Mm. When your father was your age, he went out into the world. He started his adventures, and you're at your age. Last year the pandemic started, and we all got locked in. There was the lockdown, and it wasn't possible to travel. And this kind of perspective, how do you see yourself? And do you want to go into the footsteps of your father, having an example in the family? What are your plans for the future?
Well, if I'm being honest, now more and more I want to go out, and my biggest dreams is to make the biggest memories and to live crazy adventures. And I've always thought that came from myself, but I think the man sitting next to me kind of inspired me, to be honest. I wouldn't say I would want to follow into his footsteps. I'd do my own thing. And yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm. In photography, is it something that you want to pick up as well, or more the adventure side, living adventures, and then maybe the camera comes in at some point and you record your experiences that way?
Well, to be honestly, professionally, I have no idea. I'm completely lost of what I desire to do. But of course, I'd want to. I don't know if it's dumb and stuff to say this, but my priority would be to end my life, even though I'm quite young, to be honest, end my life with many stories to have been told. And that's my biggest ambition right now, to see. And maybe it leads to something greater.
How did you raise your boy? Like, you have, not, well, in quotation marks, normal life, like normal teenagers. They grow up, their dads, they work in an office, they have regular jobs, and as a photographer, it's not normal. How did you bring up your boy?
We spent a lot of time in Nepal, actually. When you were much younger, we were in Nepal and things like that. So when we have a chance, we take the children with us. So either Deborah, my wife, you went to South America with Mom, no?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And Nepal and India. We travel to. Yeah, when we can take the children with us, we do. But I have to say that myself, I have not been a very present kind of father. Day to day. I disappear for 6 months very often and things like that, But we are planning to go traveling together and things like that. And Aurel has been traveling with his mother also quite a lot. Yeah, sure. I mean, we try to involve them as much as possible, That's what parents have to do, or they do naturally. So for sure, we don't have a very steady life. It's a bit nomadic in the Valli family. Yeah, but that's it. That's our life. The kids like it. You speak perfect English. You speak perfect French. Because Deborah is from Vancouver, so we speak English at home. Trying to, and you like that. You are very adventurous in many ways, yourself. You like, hiking in the mountains and sleeping outside at night and things like that. No, it's, the life of the parents very naturally stain the life of the kids. Just taint it. No.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I'd also like to add that I am extremely lucky, and that I traveled so many places, and I'm just, you do what you have with the cards you're given. So I'm extremely lucky.
Mm. Yeah. What was your biggest adventure so far?
Oh, Well, I do weird things, I like going out and just bizarre things. I haven't really done any adventures where I go off. I just try and trust life weirdly and meet people, talk to everyone, and try. I'm trying. I'm not doing very good. Try and find a fear of mine and try and do it. And when you do that, I realize that you feel the most alive, and feeling the most alive is the greatest feeling you ever have. So things that scare you, if you accomplish them, you're blessed. You're blessed, and you realize how fun it is to be alive.
Yeah, I remember being in the cliff with Manila. That's what we were talking about with the bee, and just being totally alive, totally present, totally here. Then, and having your heart beating, a bee, they are the biggest bee in the world, and they are as big as the tip of my finger, so just one of them landing on your nose and being stung. Obviously, you cannot escape that. And just being totally aware, totally alive, totally, wow, what an incredible feeling, And what you told me yesterday about action, what was that?
Agir, c'est connaître le repos.
Yeah. Agir.
To act is to know rest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good one. You understand? Alors, attends. Agir. Being in action is at last knowing rest.
You only know rest when you act. If you just rest and you know what I mean?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's very much, being in the action, then it's being alive, and being at peace somehow. Yeah, that's right. I thought Aurel told me that again yesterday, and that's something I told you some time ago. I got that in, I don't know what book. Yeah, being in the action is life, is being alive, basically. Yeah.
That's great. Talking about books, your father got his sense of adventure from books. Do you like books as well?
That's a funny question you ask, because it was last summer. We were traveling. We were in Italy, and I never much got into reading, but he got me, which is funny because his dad did the same. He got me Casanova, The Story of My Life, and I've always he's always told me, this man has lived a full life. These persons, they were so brave and so ballsy that they just, even if they were afraid, they just went for it. And that's always opened my eyes, like made me dream. And so I would always, that's why I say I want to live a crazy life, because he would give me a book, Casanova, Story of My Life, and he'd say, these guys, the type of guys that live 10 lives in one. I'm like, how can you have a bigger dream than just living to the completeness and trying to find yourself completely? Yeah. So I kind of got into books the same way.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other books that you would recommend to someone?
Oh, wow. Attends. Rilke, Hermann Hesse, they are German, both of them are German. Siddhartha, yeah, sure, Siddhartha was a good one. Narcissus and Goldmund was amazing one. Story of this friendship and these two different ways of leading life. One being into action, the other one being into his brain. But let's say, I don't read novels so much. I read real life stories, biographies and things like that. The biography of Richard Burton, one of the greatest adventurers of last century, an incredible man. What else? I'm reading a very interesting book about, a young German, actually. I have the book in my room, who was kidnapped by the Comanches, in 1835 or something like that, and who lived something like 12 years of his life in between the Apaches and the Comanches, and then who was recuperated by his family. and then again escaped on the Indian side again. Incredible life. Wow, so rough. So wild. Ooh, I didn't realize it was so wild. So that's what I'm reading right now. What else am I reading? You are reading, which is a very good book, the book that Mom gave you.
Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yeah,
Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yeah, Yogananda. What amazing life also. What else? The Old Man and the Sea. Also, Hemingway, which is a novel, but it's so powerful. I offered this to you not long ago, something like that. Yes. Then what else? What is the name of this fantastic writer? Khalil Gibran, The Prophet. Also, Letter to a Young Poet. Okay, which is amazing small book. So inspiring. Okay. That's Rilke, huh? Mm-hmm. That's Rilke. What else? What book did we read? L'Homme Day. L'Homme Day. L'Homme Day is a story. It's a emblematic book written maybe 50 years ago about a man who is bored to death by repeating always the same thing as we always do, the same thing, and he's bored with it, and he says, okay, a way to be alive is to go to the unknown. And he plays his life with dice. Whenever he has a choice, he has a dice, he plays it. And he goes wherever the dice tell him to go. So he goes to the unknown. He goes to a completely unplanned, unthinkable life, and he becomes alive again. So it's written by an American man. I don't remember his name. I'm reading it right now. L'Homme Day, the dice man, the man who plays his life with the dice and goes to places he would have never gone if it was not for the dice, for hazard. I think, our life. We get into a cocoon, and we die in its kind of warmth cocoon, very safe, but we die into it. It's kind of safe, but we basically die into it, and it's good to just shake it and go into unknown places, meet unknown wild man and woman, and just have our heart beating again. It's good to be listen to grab your chances. Hazard. How do you say hazard in English?
Chance.
Chance. Yeah. To go into different direction, unplanned direction. I think it's very important. It wakes you up.
Yeah, and to just trust a little,
Yeah, trust.
People, they love to plan, but just jump in your fear and trust a little. It'll go great, really. It's no secret, it just goes.
Why do you think most people prefer to be comfortable and not take chance and not roll the dice and see where it could take them?
Because, life, okay, fear is one thing, but also do realize that I have been very fortunate. I'm 68. I'm born just after the war. I haven't known war. I haven't known, our life was very smooth in many ways, But before that, it was tricky, 1939, 1914, 1880. We had war every 20 years, basically. So, then you felt like having a quiet, steady life, Nowadays, it's very different. Nowadays in Europe, we haven't known war for 80 years or 70 years. So So, it's very different. Before, war was very omnipresent. We had war all the time. So it's a different frame of mind, so we never been so rich. We never had so few wars. We never had so few people killed by war. We never lived so old. We never been, at least in the West, we never been so protected in our life, so coddled and manipulated also, So it's very different nowadays than it was, 80 years ago for sure, So otherwise, my grandfather went through war. It was very tough. So my grandmother, wow. No, it was very, very tough in the old days. So now life is very different. But I have the feeling that life is going to be less cooler than what I have known. I have the feeling that we may face things that we never thought we would face. Climate change is one. Migration is another one. But it's connected, obviously. Big social tension also. I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know.
How do you feel, like you've been to so many remote places, when you are in your, like you're in Austria right now, when you're in France, is that adventure to you as well?
Let's see, I'm very glad to be traveling with Aurel, with my son, because we talk and, we talk about things and I show him stuff and I see that he listens and he reacts. So it's very nice being with Aurel nowadays. But an adventure, that's what I said at the beginning of this interview. It's nice to look at my pictures in the park and looking at people who look at them and things like that. But it's not really an adventure for me. It's a time of reflection. It's a time because I'm writing right now, so it's a time for me to write and reflect on my life and what I still want to do in the years that I have left. Is it an adventure? No, it cannot be an adventure like the one we described at the beginning, you and I. It's not the same. That's what I said. Life, few island of bliss on the middle of an ocean of boredom. Well, I'm not bored, and it's great because I meet, all friends from National Geographic and so on, and so it's very nice, it's very touching. But yeah, sure, my heart is not beating like when I'm in the cliff or crossing the Himalaya on. With these huge yak caravans, or I don't know what other adventure. It's different. It cannot be full speed all the time. I would be dead. Yeah, I would be dead if it was full speed all the time. I would have had a heart attack,
So it's time to take a breath now, to reflect on things and gather strength and for the next adventure when you go out into the world again. What are your dreams? What do you still want to see? What do you still want to experience?
Well, I published a story something like 8 years ago. And I like to make a feature film about it, to say prolongation, the follow-up of Himalaya, the film, but in a very different context with very different people and so on. But an adventure film in the heart of the Himalayas. So that's one of my big projects, which I've been writing for almost 2 years now, and which I may be able to finish writing soon. I don't know. What else do I want to do? So this is one. That's a big one. Then a book. I'm writing a book, which comes, more or less every day, about my life. I've been asked to do that, and it's kind of fun. So especially that my son is asking me all these clumsy questions, indiscreet questions about my life and things like that. Papa, what did you do that year? Oh, so it's kind of funny. And what else? That's it, I guess. No, spending time with Aurel is a lot of fun. And then I like to take him onto a big shoot or crazy stuff. Yeah, sure. That's my next project, I would say. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to your book, to learn more stories. There's endless topics that you could talk about. It's so fascinating to hear what you've experienced in your life, really life lived to the fullest. I'd like to end maybe with photography, even though you said that you don't consider yourself to be a photographer, but still it's a medium that you use to document things along the way. What is your approach to photography? And when you take pictures and exhibit them, you also have an idea of what you want to portray or what you want to convey to the people looking at your picture. What is that?
What I like to convey is the beauty and the emotion, rather than just information. At one point I thought that photography or film would have the power to change a world, and I don't think it does. But I know that I have changed the life of people around me. I just met this young woman just 2 days ago when I arrived, who just told me, "Oh, you don't remember, but we met at such a place. I was 17 and I wanted to become a photographer." And she became a photographer, successful photographer, traveling all around the world with a husband, with a climber and a son. And she's having a very good time, it seems. So, several people, quite a lot of people, young people told me, "Oh, I saw your work and you encouraged me to live my dreams, and I went to live them and I am living them." And so it's kind of encouraging, but I don't think that photography has the power to change our behavior so much toward nature. If it had, then the world wouldn't be in such a dear situation. It's cracking from every seam now. No more forest, no more wildlife, no more virgin places. Also, one big thing I realized not long ago is that when I was born, 1952, there were 2.5 billion people on Earth. You know how many we are now? We are 8 billion. So obviously, things change, The cake was much bigger 70 years ago than it is now. So that's one of the main cause of our problem, I would say, That's a constatation. It's not a judgment. It's not, but obviously the world, for sure, is not the same as when I was born. It's things couldn't stay the same. So that's it. Well, I don't know if it's too politically correct what I'm saying, but it's a constatation, yeah.
No, it's absolutely correct. The observation, I think it's something that we all can see if we walk around with open eyes. It's, out there. You said with your photography, you're not so sure if you could change or influence people, but you want to convey a sense of adventure. You want to inspire people to go after their dreams. How is that with the photography? How do you get photos that really get under your skin? Because it's a visual thing, but a good photograph, I think, also has to grab you with your other senses. It has convey smell. It should, get you into the situation where the photographer was. Also, looking at your pictures from the honey hunters, for example, it's like you get the magnitude of the thing. You get the feeling of what it was like for you to hang there at the cliff and also being in danger. It's not a situation that you walk in and just snap a few photos. What is this photography, the process behind your photos?
The process, I work very instinctively myself. I lead my life very instinctively, and I think I take pictures very instinctively. I just try to convey the action, the beauty of the people in front of me, the beauty of the land. But to tell you how I work is almost impossible. If I want to convey this beauty that I feel, that I see, I have to be in the heart of it, to be in the middle of it, So that's why very often I work with a very wide lens. Like I told you, the Leica 19mm is just a fantastic lens, but to give you a recipe, besides the fact that I like to be in the art of the action, very close to my character, to see their expression, to see the way their hands express themselves, to see the way their eyes are, I like to be close to the subject I like to capture, But besides that, I know I move around like, kind of, it should be funny to just see me at work. I guess I walk very slowly around people and try to make myself but also realize that before I take the first pictures of the hunters or for any reportage and things like that, I hate coming like this and being aggressive with my cameras and things like that. I hate it, So sometimes all the time I go there without a camera and then tame people. Taming is a very big, very important thing to have them realize who you are, to have this kind of common respect, trust, and then slowly I take my camera out, and I show my books and things like that so they understand what I do and so on. But before I take my camera, it may take several weeks sometime, before building a trust, it's very, very important. So being at ease with the people and people being at ease with you, trusting you, it's very, very important. The human factor is very, very important, the trust, but then how do I work? But I work like that. I take a lot of time, long time. Sometimes, I never did a book or something like that in less than a year and a half, 2 years, I would go on assignment, produce my own stories quite often, and go doing a cover story in a year, 2 years, something like that. Yeah, I work very slowly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the recipe for impactful work. Take your time and then really dive deep into a subject matter. Are there any photographers that have influenced you along the way?
Yeah. One of the great one is David Allen Harvey, who has been doing a lot of stories for the Geographic, and he took me under his wing when I went there in the 80s, and for me he's one of the great one. He's one of the great, talking about human connection, in his pictures and things like that. He's Bill Allard. These guys, no? Bill Allard, David Allen Harvey, Nick Nichols. They are all good friends of mine, and they taught me a lot. The work of photographers, I like the book on Cuba, which Lois did, is amazing. Okay? Whoa, that's the work of a great photographer. When I look at the work of Sebastião Salgado on the Sierra Pelada, this This is one of the greatest reportage ever done last century, okay? Also, Leni Riefenstahl, the Nuba, les Nubatko, the Nuba, is one of the great, very inspiring work for me. Roland and Sabrina Michaud on the, what is the name of this book that they did, Caravan de Tartary, you know this book also? Fantastic book, fantastic adventures. I knew Roland and Sabrina quite well. I know Sebastio. I never met Leni Riefenstahl. I could have met her, but I never met her. What an incredible woman. Wow. Her work on the Nubatko is amazing. I mean, really, I feel so jealous, you know? Feel so bloody jealous. What a incredible woman she was. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a d'autre? Yeah, these are my inspiration, you know? Yeah. Uh-huh.
You mentioned the book about Cuba. I also was blown away by looking at it. It's incredible work. Cuban photographer. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but
no, it's Raúl Caribaño, I think.
Amazing work. And from a perspective of a Cuban photographer, I was talking with a colleague, and normally you see Cuba photographed from the outside, from people going there, and it's mostly in color. And this is black and white work done by a Cuban who lives there, which gives a totally different feeling of the island and of people's life there. What were your thoughts when you were looking through the book?
I was blown away. I told Lois, you know, I told him, you know, this is a fantastic work, because as you said very rightly, it's seen from the inside. You know, it's seen from the inside, very close, and with a lot of love. I think, you know, when you do love, one of the great recipes in life, basically, is simple, is love. Whatever you give, you get back. You shouldn't think like this, by saying, oh, if I give, I get back. You shouldn't think like that. But if you open your heart, if you are patient, if you are loving, there is no reason for people not to be open in front of you and loving and open and trustful, and that's how you get these pictures. It's all love. It's all basically. I'm so kid saying that, you know, but it's all a question of sharing, basically. Yeah, it's very much like this. Yeah.
Great. I think this is a good point to end on. It's been a fascinating conversation with you. It's actually been more than I hoped for and more than I had imagined, like a walk through life, philosophy, way of life, photography, great adventures. Thank you very, very much for taking the time. And it's been a father-son interview, which also, I think, added something special to this interview. Aurel, I wish you an adventurous life. Good luck on whatever you plan for yourself. And thank you very much, Éric Valli, for your thoughts.
Well, thank you for your question. It was very nice talking with you and reflecting on my youth. And as you said, it was a very good ending.
Yeah, very. Thank you, danke.
Merci.